I'm really excited about today. Today we have Capt and Tyre from Capt is from Pewaukee Lake, and Tyre and Heine are from North Lake. So we're looking at a lot of really cool things that are happening locally today. We're going to look at the North Lake Wave Management Study. So a lot of us, I think, have been following this pretty closely. You know that Tim is with a group called Vigilis, Terra Vigilis, and they've been using drones above water, underwater, shoreline cameras to look at how different watercraft create different waves and how those waves affect what's happening both on the shoreline and to the sediment and lake bottom. And then Tom is on the call as well. I had no better description than to say leading by example on Pewaukee Lake. All the projects that Tom is doing on Pewaukee, it's just awesome. And we'll get to those. And so it's just really exciting stuff. Tom is a good example of a leader and a really good person to reach out to if you're curious in doing some of these projects on your lakes as well. So I thought it would be great to have him speak on some of the stuff that he's been doing. Real quick, before we get to those things, I have a couple slides on just announcements for Lake Country Clean Waters. As always, I'd like to thank our board, Joyce, Susan, Caroline, Don, Denise, Alan, and Tom and Jerry. And Tom and Jerry are on our board and they're both presenting today. So that's pretty exciting. And so I also wanted to reiterate kind of the purpose of Lake Country Clean Waters and why we're here. It's to talk to each other. Lakes, I feel like, are really easily siloed out, and we all have issues on our lakes, and it's kind of like easy to just look at what's going on our lake, what's the solution on our lake, but it's really important to get everyone to talk to each other, and that's really why we exist. We want you guys to be there talking to each other, using each other as resources, using us as a resource in case you have questions about what other lakes are doing. And so we're gonna do sort of a test here. We'll see how this works. We're gonna go into breakout rooms, and I'm gonna break people out into rooms of into 3 to 5 people. So there's 32 on the call. So there'll be a few people in your breakout room. It's gonna be kind of fun. What we want to do is just introduce you guys to each other. Just say, hey, this is who I am. I'm on this lake, or maybe I'm on this river, or maybe I'm a DNR employee or a sewer pack employee. So you can say what organization you're with, and then something that we're gonna hit on and kind of talk about, and we'll see this theme today, and we'll see it kind of sort of continue on to the Healthy Lakes Conference on June 3rd. It's what does it mean to be a lake ambassador? So it'd be awesome to come off of this 5-minute break where you're with 3 to 5 people and have a good definition, maybe come off mute and share kind of what you guys thought up for the definition of a good lake ambassador. Good stuff, everybody. Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you got to talk to each other a little bit. I really this is the purpose, right? It's to be able to talk to each other and communicate and share about our lakes. And in real life, and on June 3rd at the Healthy Lakes Conference, hopefully we can do a lot more of this in person, which would be really nice. But I am curious, and we could do this a couple different ways. If you did get to the definition of a lake ambassador, that's really exciting. If you want to, you can do one of 2 things. There's a chat button, and you can type it into the chat, or what I'm gonna do is you can go to view options. If you see this, you can go to view options at the top. You can use this annotate function, and you can actually choose this text option and draw and write in what your definition of a lake ambassador is. Otherwise, feel free to just write it in the chat or come off mute. But I'm just curious to say, how was the breakout room? What did you guys think? What did you guys talk about? Feel free to chat about it.
Well, we had one of 3 that were able to connect and we could talk. So me and married Noel, and we got through. She's on Aspen Lake, and didn't have that much more time to really get down to what you're talking about, and couldn't get the other person on. I think you're a lot more savvy with this stuff than a lot of us are.
You know, I question that. It's 2 years of Zoom meetings have probably got me pretty good at it, but yeah, you know, it's always worth a try.
It's neat though to see what you can do.
Oh, great. Cool. And there's some good chats coming in too. Susan said John was telling about his Lake Leaders program right before we got bumped off. Moose Lake, North Lake, and Ashippun Lake talked about goose populations. That's a good one. Or a not good one, I should say.
Ernie had a nice overview about Lake Lavelle and what they're doing too, or thinking about. So Ernie, why don't you tell them about it? Uh-oh.
Yeah, totally. Ernie, if you want to.
What's that? I'm sorry. I didn't catch all that.
No,
Oh.
Carol. Oh yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, I'm just saying that you had some interesting things that you were showing concerns about Lake Lavelle and things that, you know, that you were very interested in. So I thought you might want to share that.
Well, I think like a lot of lakes, LaBelle's got a lot of opportunities for improvement and doing things like we're reinstalling the grates on the dam to keep migration in and out of the lake somewhat checked, and that should be happening this year. We're going to try to do a carp harvest if everything comes together. And there's just seems to be more projects. We've got a stream bank restoration project that is probably going to move forward this fall. And there just seems like more opportunities and we know what to do with.
That's good. That's good. That's awesome. Those are all really good examples of being a good lake ambassador. I like it. If anybody else wants to add, feel free.
Brad, this is Alan Barrows. I was chatting with Dee from one of the commissioners from Okauchee Lake, and she had indicated that she and her neighbors decided that, you know, somebody from their area of the lake should be involved with the lake group, and so she's been commissioner since 2006. So maybe drew the short straw, what have you. But and I had indicated that, I mean, I like working in small groups, and I try to work towards consensus in those small groups, even though that sometimes it's impossible to do. But when you can find common ground and you can get small groups to work together towards a common goal, that's what really drives me.
That's awesome.
Can I add to that? This is Sophia No Sewerpack. I've definitely found that those one-on-one interactions are so valuable. If you have them, they can, when that person lights up and learns something, they tell their neighbors, they tell their friends. And that creates such a connection that can really lead to good collaboration. So really, really good.
Well, that isn't really fair.
Totally agree, Sophia and Alan. Those are two really good points. I think John was also talking about the Lake Leaders program, which is yet another version of getting together in a small group to come to a solution. John, if you want to talk about the Lake Leaders program a little bit, we are more than welcome to.
Well, thanks, Brad. Brad and I were together in that program, I think, if I remember right. So, and we'd had some advanced lake leaders programs too, talking about capacity issues and that kind of thing. I think that's a very valuable program for all the people that are probably on this call. And if it's something that you can accommodate, that you can think about, it's worthwhile. It's great training. It is creates a really good group of people that you can rely on and contact. It's been very valuable for me in the Northwoods, and a lot of my abilities to move forward on some of my programs have been because of my training and my contacts to the lake leaders. So,
What crew are you in?
Pardon me?
What crew were
I
you
was
in?
crew 11.
Crew 11.
I'm in 14. I'm going this year.
Atta girl. All right. Terrific.
12 over
great-
here.
Yeah, nice. We got a bunch of lake leaders on the call. I love that.
I'm sure.
And anyone who doesn't know what Lake Leaders is, it's put on by UW Extension and Wisconsin Lakes. It's a partnership and the DNR, where you get people from different lakes and professionals all around the area, or from all different parts of Wisconsin, to come together. You spend three mini retreats over the course of 3 weekends, I believe, if I'm remembering this right. And you go to different retreats, you talk about different water issues, you talk about what is happening on people's lakes. It's a really good opportunity to do a very much longer version of what we just did in these breakout rooms, where you're kind of getting to know people and getting to know the issues on their lakes. Maybe you have a solution that you've done on your lake that they haven't had a chance to even think about yet. And so it's really cool learning opportunities all around, and you do really fun leadership activities and things like that. So it's a great opportunity. Crew 6. All right, Nate. Nick got in early. Crew 6.
Hey, Crew 6. All right.
Great. All right, so I'm going to keep going here. That was fun. I hope to do more stuff like this on our future calls. I mean, if we're stuck on Zoom, we might as well have some fun with it. All right, so I wanted to kind of hit on what we've done so far this year. Obviously, this is our second quarterly meeting. We've had one so far. The last one, we had Amy Kretlow and Patrick Sawula from the DNR Aquatic Invasive Species Program. They presented on what they're planning to do moving forward this year. And then we also had Paul Skowinski talk about the Citizen Lakes Monitoring Network that is run by UW Extension. I'm just gonna go through and do some muting really quick. The next thing that we have coming up after this meeting is June 3rd, and that is the Healthy Lakes Conference. So that's gonna be a real fun one. That's gonna be at the Oconomowoc Community Center in person. I'm really excited for it, to get back together and see everybody again. And you can actually, I'm going to throw the registration link in the chat here. Let me just grab that. You can actually go to the chat, and I will put this in there, and you can actually use this link to register. And this will be on our website later tonight. So that's coming up. And then we also have the Lake Country Clean Water Festival on June 25th. That's at the Pewaukee Lake Beach. That's going to be really fun. It's our first year running that. It's historically been run by the Water Ski Club on Pewaukee Lake. And this year we're contributing to it. So we're really fun. And once again, and I have to do this every time just because it's true, we run entirely off of donations. So far, we're really proud. 11 lake groups, 20 individuals, and a corporate sponsor have donated from last year to this year. We also are in partnership with Tall Pines Conservancy, the Oconomowoc Watershed Protection Program. I almost couldn't think of the word Oconomowoc there for a second. Wisconsin Lakes, the DNR, and just recently Gallagher Lake Country Real Estate Group, and then as well as individual lake organization donations. We have one part-time employee and a volunteer board of directors. So I wanted to go through and thank our sponsors from 2021, Ashippun Lake District, Big Cedar, Bark River. We have Hunters Lake Association, Lac La Belle Management District, Moose Lake Advancement Association, Delafield, North Lake, Lower Nemahbin Lake Association, the Okauchee Lake Management District. And one thing that we're really excited about is our new partnership with the Gallagher Group, Lake Country Real Estate Group. They're contributing this year in 2022, and they're contributing some really specific things that have been much needed. So we're able to reformat our website for easier access and have just a better organized website. So these recordings will be available much easier. And we're also going to work with them to develop a 10 to 12 page coffee table style booklet. It's going to be focused on how to be a lake ambassador. And it's going to cover a variety of topics like regulations, enforcement, aquatic invasive species, what happens to a lake through the course of a year, citizen science that you can do on the lake. And it'll most importantly contain contact information of who to reach out to for different issues on lakes that come up. So we're really excited to begin our work on that. We're hoping to have it by our June 3rd conference. And they're also sponsoring the Healthy Lakes Conference. So thanks to the Gallagher Group. And there's also an opportunity for you to sponsor the Healthy Lakes Conference. You'll see if you go to that link that I just shared in the chat, there's two types of registrations. One is the regular registration. It's just the event fee to come to the Lake Country Clean Waters Healthy Lakes Conference. It's a $45 ticket. what you can do is you can choose to be a sponsor for the Healthy Lakes Conference. And so by contributing a little bit more, you're saying, hey, I'm endorsing the Healthy Lakes Conference. I'm excited about what you guys are doing. And you'll also get recognized at the Healthy Lakes Conference by having like a special name badge that will tell people that you are a sponsor. So it's kind of fun. It's just a way to kind of keep it going, keep things moving, and enjoy. All right. There's also Lake Country. There's different donation levels that you can get to. Feel free to send me a message. You can DM me, or you can send me an email if you're interested in having your lake group donate. We do have a lot of, as you see, associations donating. So that's really, really nice. And then also coming up, we'll recognize somebody at our Healthy Lakes Conference for the Lake and River Organization Award. 2020, North Lake won it. It's exciting that they won it, and they're presenting on that work still today, because that work's continuing to go on and be awesome. Last year, Silver Lake won it. That's me and Nate Rice hanging out there at the Oconomowoc Community Center. And this year, you can win it if you want to apply for it. So you can actually go to lakecountrycleanwaters.org, and you can fill out an the annual recognition award form. So that's just right on the website. If you log on to lakecountrycleanwaters.org, it's right on the main page. You just scroll down a little bit and you'll see a button. It'll bring you to like an Excel document, and then you can email that. So that's exciting. And then just some upcoming dates, and then we'll get to Tim. So upcoming dates, and I mentioned this one a few times, the Healthy Lakes Conference, that is Friday, June 3rd. Once again, you can register in the chat. I just shared that. I'll share it again, just in case somebody didn't see it. I think I might have shared it to everybody. Yep, there we go. You can register there. And then, whoops. And then after that, in June, we have the Clean Waters Festival. That's going to be the one at Pewaukee Beach. That's Saturday, June 25th. And the Lake Country Clean Waters Quarterly Meeting, the last one of the year, is going to be on Wednesday, September 14th. All right. Thank you for getting through those announcements with me. It's always fun. Now we can get to the fun presentations, the meat and potatoes here. We have Tim Tyre and Jerry Heine presenting today. Tim is going to be, I think, presenting most of the time. And Tim, I think we've heard from him before. He's doing a really cool project. He's worked on North Lake Management District for a few years now, and I think lived on it for a while, but recently moved. So he's going to be talking about phase 3 of the North Lake Management District drone and wake study. So he was a principal with Terra Vigilis Security Group and has been a lead investigator with the Terra Vigilis Environmental Services Division. He's a retired naval officer, prolific researcher, adjunct professor of aviation science at Carroll University, and FAA senior flight instructor and pilot. Tim brings a unique perspective to the studies conducted on the North Lake during phase 2 research conducted this summer. And with that, I will stop sharing, Tim, and you can take it away.
And I am going to defer to Jerry Heine because he wanted to take a few moments to say some things.
Perfect.
So I'll stand by.
Thank you, Tim. North Lake consists of 2 bays. In total, it's 438 acres. The big bay is about 333 acres, and the little bay is 105 acres, pretty small. As usual with most things, what generated the lake study is people complaining about the impact of the waves from the wake boats. And so we sent out a survey to people, and it was between 55 and 60% of the people on the lake that did return their surveys, that they were concerned about the lake and they wanted us to do some work related to that. So at that time, we hired Terra Vigilis to start a study, and that was in 2019, where it was later in the year and they just did some more preliminary work. I would say it was more an organization. In addition, North Lake Management District applied for a grant from Department of Natural Resources, and we were awarded a $30,000 grant to help offset some of the costs. The outcome of Tim's organization's study so far is that we came up with a list of boating guidelines. And what that means, it's not enforceable. We're asking the people on the lake to voluntarily adhere to these particular things. Number one is don't do the wake surfing mode on the little lake. It's too small. We've done, or Tim's organization has done enough work now to know that the impact on the lake bottom and the shorelines on the little bay is really detrimental. Another one is we ask all wake traffic to operate at least 250 feet from shore. The third one is wake boat traffic to operate as close to middle lake as possible, kind of similar to the 250 feet from shore since the bay is so small. Please avoid going over sandbars because again, the downward thrust from the wake, it greatly affects the sandbars and they're really important. Fifth is when wake traffic is present, the other operators of boats like pontoon boats, fishing boats, and so forth, we ask them to stay within the 250-foot safe zone. Quote, it's not really safe, but it's better than being closer. And then the other two are additional things that we learned when we sent out the survey. On Saturday, Sunday, and holidays, we asked them to go slow no wake beginning at 6 p.m. And the last one is all inclusive. Please, obviously, please be courteous and thoughtful when operating your boat on the lake. So that's a brief summary of kind of where we went and where we are right now. And I'll stop talking because you really want to hear to Tim. Tim?
Well, thanks, Jerry. And thanks, first of all, to the Lake Country Clean Waters Group for hosting us again and laying out some of the data. In particular, I want to say something about Jerry Heine and the North Lake Management District. They've really been, have done a yeoman's job on protecting the lake over many, many years. And that's not an easy job because there's all kinds of different interests and agendas. And as you all know who live on a lake, it can be a difficult type job. And he's really done an outstanding piece of work. So kudos to Jerry. The research that we've done on North Lake is collaborative. It includes a relationship between Carroll University and their departments of chemistry, aviation science, and environmental sciences, as well as sewer pack. And so we have kind of joined forces with subject matter experts from all of those entities to try and pursue this study. A couple of real quick qualifiers before I get into the data with you all. I am not a trained marine biologist or a hydrologist or a chemist. I have expertise in the conduct of research and data analyses. I've lived on North Lake 40 years, recently moved off the lake, and I have a real strong interest in protecting that body of water, preserving it, and I still do. And that is one of the drivers that got us involved with the North Lake Management District. So the purpose of my briefing for you tonight is to go through the phase 2. It's a 3-phase process. We've completed phase 1. I'll be talking about phase 2 and the findings, the principal findings from phase 2, which were conducted last summer, as a means to emphasize the importance of using science to inform public policy, particularly where you have very different agendas and very different interests that are sometimes conflicting with one another. So if we can move to the PowerPoint now, Brad.
Sure. So that's going to be, go back to that share screen
Okay.
on the bottom there. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let me just turn it to this. Okay, so I guess first I want to make sure I've got good comms with everybody so you can all see this and hear my voice clearly. Is that correct?
Sounds great.
Right. Okay, so this is going to be a highlight summary of what we did last summer and some of the principal findings of that research. As I told you all, we were retained, and Jerry mentioned this as well, by the North Lake Management District back in 2019 to conduct a 3-phase water quality and wave propagation impact study on North Lake. So it was both wave propagation, wave physics, as well as water quality. The work included gathering of metrics on water quality markers, water chemistry, and then the use of commercial and submersible drones for the measurement, precise measurements of wave impacts on both the surface of the lake as well as the subsurface environments. There's lots of claims about waves that do or do not do damage to things. And again, we wanted to bring some science into it. And as I've indicated, this is a collaborative effort. So the following research domains were addressed in the phase 2 study. Water clarity and chemistry. I'll talk about that with you in just a bit. The redistribution of sediments in the lake, which is a concern. And the distributor of those sediments are plumes. And because we have aerial drones that can gather images, digitize them, and then play them out in video formats, we have very compelling information that shows that these plumes can be developed in ways that people were not really aware of. You don't see it the way you'd see it from 1,000 feet above the surface of the water. We're also going to talk tonight a little bit about the measurement of prop wash impacts on the part of wakeboard boats that are in wake surf mode. And I'll probably redefine this 3 or 4 times during the course of this briefing, but I'll start by this first definition. A wakeboard boat, which is in wake surf mode, means that you have a wakeboard boat which has flooded its stern. The ballasting includes anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 pounds of water. So the stern is dropped deep into the water. The bow comes up anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees. And the boat moves at a slow speed. These boats have very, very large horsepower engines, 400 to 500 horsepower engines. So they, by design, produce a very, very large wave. We now know they also have a prop wash impact, and I'll show you some information about that, which is quite interesting. We gathered photometric data on shoreline erosion baselines for the North Lake Management District. And finally, we did some subsurface looks with submersible drones on the impacts of all of this on plant life and fish habitat. So that's what I'm going to talk about here in about the next 30 minutes or so. We have used 7 sampling sites on the large and small basins on North Lake. I'll show you an image of this in just a moment. We took water quality measurements, including phosphorus, total suspended solids, dissolved oxygen, and I'm covering up something here. You can probably all see that. Go ahead. I didn't hear what you said.
Nope. I was just going to see if you needed any technical help.
No.
Okay.
We'll drudge on here. So we took water quality measurements at the surface and then at selected depths all the way down to 20 feet. We use standard Secchi disc procedures for measuring water quality. We did the original design called for 13-week sequence. So throughout the summer at all sites, twice a week. All of the chemistry samplings were taken to state certified labs for testing. We used a combination of commercial aerial drone imagery, which depicted plume developments and wave physics. And we used commercial submersible drone imagery for the study of the wave enhancing vessel prop wash depths. Because we did temperature probing, we were able to establish thermocline levels throughout the lake, which for those that don't know about such a thing, this is a protective temperature layer anywhere from 15 to 20 feet down, depending upon the lake, which is very dense water. So it protects sediments from being stirred up unless you blast something through it. And that's why we wanted to look at this prop wash business. And then finally, we did a kind of an interesting little mini study at the end of the summer. We looked at the release of phosphorus following wave enhancing vessel traffic on a predetermined course at predetermined speeds. So we wanted to see if the impact of their use was stirring up the water column with more phosphorus release. So those are the things I'm going to talk to you about tonight. These are the sites on the lake. 7 sites, as I spoke about. So it's an aerial view of North Lake. To the left are sites 1, 2, and 4. That's what we call the Little Basin or the Little Lake on North Lake. And to the right is the large basin, sites 6, 3, 7, and 5. 5 is blocked by the photographs of all the participants here. All of those were sampled for chemistry, as I mentioned. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the important highlights of the phase 2 study. I'm taking 30 minutes to give you hundreds of hours of work. So I'm going to try and take some of the highlight things that are very important. And by the way, I would tell you, we are now talking with research teams all across the United States who are doing the same kind of work because of the concern about the impacts of wakeboard boats, both on the surface and on the subsurface. So some of the things I'll speak about, I'll make reference to other studies that have found the same thing. So science is moving on. So first of all, how did we measure wave heights and downwash, the physics of those things? The first 3 procedures here were used to measure wave heights, wave distances, wave frequencies. And this is a scientific explanation or an engineering explanation for how we actually did this. In short, we used an aerial drone that took a photograph or a series of photographs of waves against a baseline. The data was extracted and put into a 3D wireframe model with known measurements, and using photogrammetry procedures, we were able to measure in a very precise way wave heights during these sampling procedures, as well as wave frequencies. So we digitally captured all this. In addition, we engineered a tripod that was about 30 to 40 feet from the shoreline and 6 feet from the side of a dock. We had a camera placed near a surveyor's ruler, and the camera would watch waves as they rolled in from vessel traffic, so we could make precise measurements that we could capture on a camera. So one procedure double checked on the other procedure. And procedure 4, which is quite interesting, and it's sort of a proprietary thing that we engineered, we developed a system for measuring prop wash impact down to 30 feet in the lake using, and I'll show you a photograph of this in a moment, an aluminum extendable system that had wands or fixtures sticking off of it every 5 feet down to 25 feet. And on the end of those wands, there was a little fiber optics brush that was highly sensitive to movement of water. And each of these fixtures had a camera on it. So if I show you the picture, all the words will make more sense. So let me get to that in just a minute here. So that's what we use. That's 30 plus feet long. It was anchored at the bottom. It had cameras at each of those 5-foot increments that I spoke about. And it was held in position with flotation systems at the top. So this was an extended pole vertically that went down 30 feet. The cameras that you see along the pole itself were positioned so they could look straight out that fixture and look at those little wands that you see. And so any prop wash that came down from the surface would move those wands. And we captured that on camera. So that's how we could tell that a prop wash would go down any more than just a few feet, which is what typically occurs with most boats. Okay, let's go back now. So, we measured wave heights at the shore for 3 different kinds of vessels: a wakeboard boat in surf mode, a pontoon boat in regular use with a typical engine, about a 40, or it was less, about a 25 horsepower Yamaha engine on a pontoon boat, and then a personal watercraft and the column of data for the personal watercraft is hidden. Just again, for those of you that don't do the physics of waves, if you look at the imagery below the table, wavelength is defined as the distance between the crests of waves. Wave height is the distance from the trough or the lowest portion of the wave up to a line from the crest to the crest. So what can I tell you about that? Just one moment. Here it is. What the figure there with all the numbers means, because it could be confusing, is basically that a wakeboard boat, a pontoon boat, and a personal watercraft all produce a very different kind of wave. Any of you who live on a lake know this from your eyes, but this gives us the scientific data to really speak about this in some degree of precision. So what do we know about wakeboard boats? We know that their wavelengths are longer than the other vessels. We know that the wave heights are higher than the other vessels. And we know that of the three vessels here, wakeboard boat, pontoon boat, and the personal watercraft, which is hidden by the column of photographs, the shortest wave time, in other words, the shortest amount of distance between waves, was produced by wakeboard boats. So they pound. Other waves have a little bit more distance between them. Because they have depth to them, I'm speaking now about wakeboard boat waves, they scrub the bottom. So if you have a wakeboard boat in surf mode producing a wave that has a surface that you can see, a surface effect, it also has a subsurface effect. As that moves away from that vessel on both sides, as it gets near a shoreline where the water depth becomes more shallow, the energy produced by that wave under the water that you don't see is stirring up the bottom. It's roiling the bottom. Okay. We also looked at data on wave oscillations at 200 feet from the shoreline and 300 feet from the shoreline. And we compared vessels, wakeboard boats in surf mode, pontoon boats, and personal watercraft. Again, the column of images doesn't show this, so I'll simply tell you that the oscillations from wakeboard boats are far and away greater than any of the other vessels. Again, you can experience this simply by watching it from a shoreline. And that includes distances, as we measure them in our studies, out to 300 feet from a shoreline. Now, the University of Minnesota, St. Francis Laboratories has just completed and published their studies. They're talking about 400 to 500 feet from a shoreline with impacts on the bottom and on the shoreline itself. So I would refer you to their study. If you simply Googled University of Minnesota St. Francis Laboratory wakeboard boat studies, you'll get the full research. It's a well-designed study. So this was showing wakeboard boats at 200 feet and 300 feet from the shoreline. The claims of that industry is that they have no impact beyond any other type boat. It's simply not true. Okay, that's the pole that gave us prop wash information. As I said, that was vertically placed. Now I have a computer image that might make a description of this prop wash easier to understand. So this is a 3D model of North Lake, although we don't have a mountain in the background. That was the imagination of the computer imager, but this otherwise is accurate for North Lake in terms of bottom depths. Last summer, throughout the summer, we had a thermocline depth of 17 feet, average. If you look in the middle of this photograph, you'll see a wakeboard boat in surf mode. They produce a downwash, which we have measured, that goes in excess of 20 feet. So a prop wash, which is like it's like a microburst in bad weather. You know, I'm an aviator, so I teach people how to fly airplanes. This is one of the things we tell students, never go anywhere near clouds that are producing microbursts because they'll knock you out of the sky. So a microburst is a release of energy from the atmosphere straight down, hits the ground and spins out. A prop wash in some ways is exactly the same thing. So if you look at the prop wash that's been imaged on this computer model, what you'll see is prop wash that goes down and gets at the level of the thermocline. What does the thermocline do? It protects the bottom sediments from being stirred up and redistributed. So if you have something that's penetrating those thermoclines on a regular basis, we have a real issue, depending upon what it is in the sediments in your lake. I told you that we did a kind of a unique thing towards the end of the summer, and that was to see if we could measure what wakeboard boats in surf mode did to the chemistry of the lake in terms of phosphorus release. So we took a wakeboard boat, put it in surf mode, and we ran it on a course along the eastern side of the Little Basin on North Lake. A course was approximately 800 yards long, and it was about 200 feet from the shore. And we ran it from southwest to northeast, up and back down twice, 2 runs. We took samples of phosphorus before that occurred along the course line with the buoys. We also took samples of phosphorus closer to the shoreline at each of those 3 spots. Again, the third one is covered by the photographs. Then we waited 20 minutes and we took another sample of phosphorus in those 6 places. 25% increase in the water column of phosphorus that was released. That was with 2 runs on a wakeboard boat in surf mode. So extrapolate from that all day long, wakeboard boats in surf mode running in water, which is anywhere from 20 to 15 feet or less. There's a roiling effect, which stirs up phosphorus. It's released into the column. And as you know, phosphorus is one of the nutrients that produces impacts on plant life and all kinds of other chemical changes. So that is the first of its kind in the country that looked at that specific thing. That data has already been shared with the University of Minnesota people and the folks out at the University of Oregon. And they are concerned about this as much as we are. So in addition to the surface effects of a large wave, if you're close to one of these boats that produce these big waves, which obviously is a risk, which is why the guidelines were developed on North Lake to create a kind of a safe zone. There's bottom impacts and there's water column impacts. What could we do so that we could, well, let me see if I can just read that to you.
Hey, Tim, quick question that came up just while it's here.
Yep.
Is there a specific make and model of wakeboard boat that you were using?
Yes,
Okay.
that's included in a summary at the end of this, and I can get it to you, but stand by one and I'll tell you right now what it was.
Perfect.
We used 2 different wakeboard boats for the study. One was a 2020 Super Air Nautique wakeboard boat with a 450 horsepower inboard engine, 6,000 pound ballast capacity, and adjustable electronic bow and stern angle options. The other was a 2014 wakeboard boat Sport Nautique with a 400 horsepower inboard engine, 4,100 pounds worth of ballasting capacity, and again, an adjustable bow and stern angle. Both boats used for purposes of the study were run at between 9 and 11 knots, which is the optimal slow speed to produce the largest waves possible. So that was the technology in terms of the wakeboard boats. The
Awesome,
other
thank you.
vessels, as long as we're on it. A fishing boat, we used a 2004 16-foot Boston Whaler with a 40 horse Merc. standard depth lower unit. And we used a 1991 20-foot Sun Cruiser pontoon boat with a 25 horsepower Yamaha with a standard depth lower unit. And finally, we used a 2004 Sea-Doo personal watercraft, a supercharged version. So those are the comparative vessels. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. That's perfect.
So let me just get to the water chemistry. Basically, what this says, it's blocked a little bit here, is at the what you're seeing in the table is weekly samples of phosphorus on North Lake from June through September. All of them were in excess of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources standard. So we had higher than what we wanted phosphorus on the lake. Now, phosphorus is sensitive to a number of things, so we kept separate data so we could look at rainfall, ambient pressure, and ambient temperature. All of that is part of the extended study, which runs almost 45 pages. It's beyond the scope of what we're doing here. Okay, here, this photograph shows you right underneath the column of photographs is the reef on Wildwood Point Road that separates the two lakes. So let me kick back to another photograph here and you can see this real quick. Nope. Let's see if I got one back here. Okay, you see where it says Site 3? That's the reef that you're looking at in this photograph, hidden by the participants in this. Okay, so this is an aerial view from about 400 feet above the ground with a commercial drone with the camera viewing the development of plumes. Is there a way, Brad, to move the images of the people that are in this column over to the left a little?
There is, so only you can see them there.
Oh, so the rest of you
people
are
can see
seeing
the
what I'm
screen.
talking
Yeah,
about.
so
Okay, well, then I'm familiar with this photograph. So what you're going to see,
Okay, good.
particularly where I showed the orange arrow, the little lake on North Lake has a shelf all around it where the water is relatively shallow from a foot to about 6 feet, and then it drops off precipitously, gets deep. That shelf is what gets stirred up by all of this subsurface wave activity, and it produces the plumes that you see running along the edge of the shoreline and jumping across that reef into the larger basin. They settle out there and they have impacts on the plant habitats. So this is a wake surf mode plume impact. We also kept subsurface data on the beginning and end of the summer. Here, what you're looking at in the top left where it says depth 3 to 40 feet. In early summer, so right after the ice is gone, May, we ran a submersible in anywhere from 8 down to about 15 feet. This is a commercial submersible drone, so it's got very powerful lights on it. And what you can see if you look close is the beginning of plant life all along the bottom. Directly below it, what you see is the exact same route because we GPS all this. So the drone is going down the exact same course, the exact same depth. The plant life is covered up with sediment buildup from activity on the lake. So that's a subsurface impact from stirring up sediments. This is also a rather impactful picture. This is that same reef, but now you're looking from the north to the south of the reef. And if you run your eye along the edge of the green, that's Terra. This was taken on a heavy use weekend, this photograph from a drone at about 10 feet off the water. And what it actually showed us was a buildup of gravel and sediments that covered up the Terra about anywhere from 20 to 60 feet away from the edge of that reef into the big lake. It just smothered the car up. So boat traffic is also a variable for policymakers, particularly near reefs where there's sensitive subsurface plant life, fish habitat, et cetera. Okay, so we've turned in, like I said, almost a 50-page report to the North Lake Management District, and they're still, I'm sure, reading it. But several summary findings I can share with you, and then I'll take questions. So this is phase 2 principal findings. 1, there are significant differences we've noted between the wave characteristics and the impact of wave action from various kinds of powered vessels. Less impactful wave effects are noted from pontoon boats, fishing vessels, personal watercraft, compared especially to wakeboard boats in surf mode as I defined. Wakeboard boats in surf mode have both surface and subsurface impacts. So statements by that industry that they have no more impact than any other vessel are simply not true. Number 2, propeller downwash characteristics have been measured, which show significant bottom effects from wakeboard boats in surf mode at depths greater than 20 feet. That depth effect is not observed from the other 3 categories of vessels because they don't have a large, powerful engine. Their propeller angles do not, because the stern goes way down 20 degrees or so, that prop wash is aiming down. It's not going horizontal to the surface. And then finally, they don't ballast out and they plane those vessels. Wakeboard boats in surf mode deliberately do not plane. They're basically dragging the stern to produce a big wave. Number 3, shoreline impacts from wave propagation show significant differences between vessel types and the distance from the shoreline. We measured as far out as 300 feet. Other studies have gone further. The University of Minnesota says up to 500 feet, there's impacts on the shoreline. This is particularly notable where you have a lake where you've got a deep bowl and then it comes up and there's a shelf. So that subsurface energy is stirring up or roiling up the bottom. Bottom impacts from wakeboard boats in, I want to get to my copy of this because I can't see from those photographs. Pardon me for just a moment.
If you want to try, you can click the photographs and drag them over to the other side of the screen.
Let's see. Okay.
I'm almost there. Sorry about the delay, folks.
No worries.
Okay. Bottom impacts from wakeboard boats in surf mode have a significant impact on sediment redistribution and the release of nutrients into the water column. After periods of less than 30 minutes, we found 25% increases in released phosphorus. This effect was measured in depths of 5 to 8 feet. The wakeboard boat survey course was in 25 to 15 feet of water at 200 feet from the shore. And again, I would remind you, this was simply 2 runs. Extrapolate from that all day long activity. Water quality measures are responsive to boating activity levels, with evidence of increased total suspended solids during periods of high boating activity on the weekends and reduced total suspended solids by midweek. And finally, redeposition effects are notable from persistent wakeboard boat activity in surf mode on the Little Lake Basin on North Lake, with evidence of plume deposits along the majority of the Wildwood Point Reef. Depositional materials appear to have an impact on aquatic plant life. So again, we've sent them a 50-page report. There's an enormous amount of data in it. For purposes of this briefing tonight, I wanted to kind of confine my comments just to this, and then I'm available to take any questions you might have.
And I just wanted to comment on a couple things. That reef that you showed between the two lakes, and you said you came out 40 years ago, and we did too. That was above ground, had trees and bushes on it. And over that 40-year period, that reef has been worn down so that now, through most of the year, except when we have extremely low water, it's always underwater. Now, we don't know how much of that wear away was from nature, from high winds and moving the water, and from boating activity on the lake. That I don't think we can categorize, but just to show you, there's been a very, very significant effect on that reef and true on the shorelines, because more and more of the people, after the wake boats started, it was just like a domino effect where people on the lakes started putting riprap on the shorelines to protect them. The other thing is, Tim, it replied to the comment that came up at an annual meeting where one of the wakeboarders said that I don't boat in 20 feet of water, so I'm not affecting the lake bottom. You want to comment on that?
Well, the dispersal of a wave, it goes vertically and it also goes horizontally. And as that subsurface energy spins out, it depends a little bit on how shallow the lake is. The minute it gets into fairly shallow water, the size of the wave on the surface is also the size of the wave energy below the surface. So it's stirring up sediments as it moves away from the vessel. It's just that you can't see it. It's happening regardless.
Yeah, you can see it if you stand on your pier, and that energy is there. And then when it hits our shelf, it's surface, and you can see that the from the shelf all the way to your shoreline is very murky because it's doing exactly what you said, stirring up the lake bottom. The other thing is that, and I can't give you exact numbers, I don't have it here. On the little lake, we have approximately 28 wake boats. That's a 105-acre area. And we have another like 16 or 18 on the big lake. Now, this is a lake that's 438 acres, which is small. That's a ton of wake boats. Not that they're all out there at the same time, but it isn't one, it isn't two. And that's why, you know, the impact is very, very significant.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, that was the next thing I was going to say was the number of boats. 7 or 8 years ago, we had 1 or 2. Now we have 40.
Wow.
Major issue on a lake that size.
Well, Tim.
And, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, keep going. I was just going to say, great presentation. I think this work is so important in determining, you know, what the future of this looks like, especially as you say, extrapolate as far as you want, however many boats are going to be this year and the next year and the next year, and what that's going to mean. There were a couple of questions that popped up in the chat. I'm happy to read those off if you want to answer them, unless you were about to say something else.
Nope, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. One's from Caroline. How many months did you test the influence of the wake boats? Did you take tests for the bottom in other months other than the months tested? If so, how did the results compare? So I think
the measurements we've taken are over 2 summers.
Okay.
So they're 4-month summers.
And I think, Caroline, are you asking if you took measurements like in winter, potentially?
No.
Like
No.
Okay.
No, May through September was
Okay.
when all this activity was going on. And while we're doing the wave physics, we're also looking at water chemistry, water clarity. So again, as I said, the North Lake Management District got a 50-page report. I'm just giving you some of the highlights.
Great. No, that's cool. There's another one from Daryl regarding the higher phosphorus tests after 2 runs of the boats. Did you test how long the elevated phosphorus levels lasted? He's curious.
No.
He heard that it was less than 30 minutes, but he's curious to how long they lasted.
Yeah, no, we did not measure anything beyond 30 minutes.
Okay. Gerald is asking, these questions are coming in, you guys. This is great. Is there any issue with the reactionary waves as they return to the lake after bouncing off the shore?
It's not something we specifically measured, except we caught with submersible drones the roiling effect. So as these waves come in and they get into shallow water, they stir up the bottom. That stir up then creates a plume source, which runs the shoreline until it gets to a spot where it can jump over. And that was what that photograph showed you from the plumes. And that is not something you would see if you were in a boat just looking over the gunnel at the surface of the water.
Sure.
We only found it when we had drones in the air that could give you that perspective from 400 feet, and then it was dramatically shown.
Wow, amazing. Jill has a question about the boating industry, and they'll claim that wind energy will cause waves equally as damaging, and I'm going to paraphrase and say as wake boat damage, and she's wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've heard that statement. There's no question that wind waves have an impact on a lake. There's no question. They do not have a significant amount of subsurface impact, as does a wave which is producing a prop wash that can go down almost 20 feet. They simply don't have that effect.
All right, another one. And I'm trying to kind of vet these as I'm reading them. So the effect, so this one's from John. The effect of sediment wash over the aquatic plants was so severe that it killed the plant growth for the year? ? At what depth?
This was in 8 to 15 feet of water, and it was taken at the end of the season. We don't know what effect it had beyond that. And that was one of the benefits of collaborating with the sewer pack people that have got marine biologists and hydrologists. We're waiting for them to give opinions on that.
Gotcha. Good. These are great questions, you guys, and this is awesome. Mary's asking, wakeboarders claim they have a triangular diffuser that redirects the pro wash so that it's directed backwards instead of down. Is that true? Do you have any information on this?
They are aware in the last 2 years, the National Marine Manufacturers Association, because we've spoken with their engineers, they are aware that they have subsurface impacts more than they ever imagined. I think they're trying to address it. I don't have the specifics on what they're doing, but I know that if I went to a Walgreens drugstore and bought some of that stuff that makes your hair not gray, it'll go away in about a day or two.
Sure. The Caroline is actually asking a really question relative to what Mary said. Is there a way to work with the boat industry to see if they could improve the design? So if you're talking to the engineers, are there people who are actively working on this or that you could actively work with?
I don't know the answer to the question. We've been in contact with the National Marine Manufacturers Association. They've reached out to us a couple of times. They're very concerned about our data. They wanted to get our data. They're very concerned about the data coming from the University of Minnesota, Taylor's St. Francis lab. They have recently taken the single study that they've ever sponsored, which was put out in 2015, which did not look at bottom effects at all, and have kind of re-engineered that study and fiddled with some of the numbers. I'm not at all impressed with what they've come out with. They haven't done any systematic work like we've done here. So the body of evidence is growing in a way that matches with what people see with their own eyes. There's an impact to these kind of vessels that has consequences on lakes, particularly lakes that are shallow or small.
Very interesting. We'll be able, oh, there's one more. And so Gerald will have the last question. I do want to mention, Tim, we're going to try and address more of this at our Healthy Lakes conference. So I know if you have further questions, we're going to try and speak to this and potentially have maybe some other people from that Minnesota study attend as well and be able to talk on that. So I think that would be really a good to kind of further this conversation along at the Healthy Lake conference on June 3rd. And then we'll get to Tom shortly here. But there's one more question. Were some of the complaints received from stand-up paddleboard and kayak users worried about getting swamped or tipped over?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and we've heard that for sure. Well, great presentation, Tim.
Can I quick, Brad, can I quick expand on that? It
Sure.
wasn't just them. We also had complaints from people where their grandchildren are on the lake and they have some of these toys in the water, and the wave comes in and actually knocks them off the toy. We've had that kind of complaint. Another one is I was out fishing on our pontoon boat with a bunch of guys, and I saw it coming, and I said to the guys, hold on, here it comes, because we were getting it broadside. You know, if you have your front of the pontoon in it, it's not so bad.
Right.
We got it broadside, and the pontoon really flips from those waves.
Sure.
So it's significant.
Yeah. Great. Well, that was an awesome presentation. I mean, it leaves a lot of questions and a lot to keep the discussion going about, which is good. I mean, it's good to have these discussions, and I'm glad we are. We'll switch gears at this point, and feel free to reach out to Tim if you guys have further questions, or me, and I'll get it to Tim. Now we're going to talk to Tom Koepp, who is on the Pewaukee Lake Sanitary District. So Tom has been doing some awesome advocacy work for the Pewaukee Lake area. He's all over the place doing all kinds of projects all the time, and it's fun to talk to him about everything he's got going on. A little background about Tom: he graduated from the Milwaukee School of Engineering. He is a lead AP, Leadership in Environmental Energy Design accredited professional engineer at Ruckert Milke, and a stormwater quality and quantity for 15 years, and now manages Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District for 11 years. He's also the chairman of Walleyes for Tomorrow, the Pewaukee chapter, and grew up on the lake. So with that, Tom, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, I'll stop sharing here. Go right ahead. See if we can get it to work this time.
Yes. There we go.
Oh, pro.
Just gotta know how to switch slides. Let me just see. That's not gonna work there. You're saying you can move the people over. There we go.
Yep, scooch them over.
I'm moving you guys all over.
We feel like we're getting rocked by a wake boat.
Okay, there we go. All right. Good talk on the wakeboard boats. Boy, that's a huge topic. And Tim, you got me nervous, and Gerald, about that phosphorus. I don't need any help growing plants. Everyone knows Pewaukee is pretty good for growing plants. And then it scares me hearing about that stirring up because arsenic was used way back when for aquatic plant control. And we don't want to stir that back up off of that smaller basin. Our east basin is, you know, generally 10 feet deep, and that's nothing but trouble. So yeah, that's a whole nother problem coming up. So, all right, I'm gonna go pretty quick through slides until I get halfway through, kind of. I'm going to go because it's history about the lake. I think a lot of people might know about the lake, and so I don't want to spend too much time talking about history and whatnot. But basically, it's the dam. It was a river that went through it. It was a swamp, and in 1838 they put a dam in and blocked it off and created the lake itself, the larger part of the lake. 2,500 acres, 4.5 miles long, 1.4 miles wide. The maximum depth in the center of the big lake is 45 feet. It's really got a mean depth of about 5 feet on this eastern basin. And it's basically between 5 and 20 feet is the general percentage of the lake. Here's a bathymetric map, so you can see the deep basin here. That little red dot is, we do the Sakey disc and water quality testing there, and then over on the small end of the lake, it's almost like two different lakes. We do the temperature, salinity, which is becoming a problem, if you've heard, the salts on the roads and stuff, dissolve oxygen, verify the thermocline, things like that. We've been doing that for about 20 years with the YSI unit. The district actually formed because of the septic systems around the lake leaking into the lake. So it was mainly formed to inspect those systems to make sure they weren't polluting the lake. And then I think they even did garbage cutting. And then later it became operating a weed cutter or chemical treatment. So way back 1947 was the first weed harvester Matt Grinwald used on Pewaukee. And then they contracted with applied biochemists, used chemicals. You can see the poundage in there, just thousands and thousands of pounds of chemicals went into the lake. Later it was, 2,4-D. And then in 1985, the people before me, my predecessors, decided to try to go harvester only mechanical and stop the aquatic herbicides. So that talks a little bit about it. One of the theories is in Pewaukee, it became 90% Eurasian water milfoil. They used, 2,4-D in the later years to chemically treat it. Yes, it would kill the aquatic plants. They go down to the bottom, they decay, they add to the sediment. It affects the dissolved oxygen level for the species in the lake. And we didn't know, or they didn't know, what the actual effect would be on human beings and dogs and young fish. And I think there's still studies going on with that. But in our case, and every lake is different, what came back? Milfoil came back. So yeah, you got rid of the weeds. You had the chemicals in there. You had a nice, I'll say, clean lake of weeds, but then you got an algae bloom and it was pea green soup the rest of the year. And like I said, I grew up on the lake and I used to dive down to the bottom and look at the bottom and with a mask on and try to see what's on the bottom, but I'd be 6 inches off the bottom, put my face right to the bottom so I could see what was on the bottom of the lake. I was, I think, 6 years older in 6th grade. I just remember the 6th. So been on the lake. My parents had a cottage. That's how it started. So we started getting more into the harvesting, other back to the chemicals. There's a picture of Art Hundley water skiing. He's been skiing for about 85 years on Pewaukee Lake. So that's just a teaser slide for the chemical use. So in 1990, it was the worst milfoil has been in the last 10 years. 100 residents were at the high school, and the lake's going to revert to a swamp. A citizen advisory committee was formed. I wasn't part of this, but I owned my first house on the other side of the lake. And honestly, I remember looking out the window and I'm like, holy cow, you're going to be able to walk across this lake pretty soon. I didn't know there was a Pewaukee Sanitary District cutting weeds, or I probably would have called and complained too. So a lot of work was being done. This is an old slide talking about the macrophytes, the plants being removed through the harvesting program. You can see way back 1990, 8,000 cubic yards. And then it seems like it kind of went in cycles. So there's theories with that. But in 1992, after that heavy weed growth, they decided that, okay, there are so many people that were for chemicals, so many people that were against them. The district said, look, you create a citizens advisory committee and you guys get together, do your own research and come back to the district with what you believe is the best thing for the lake. And when we talk about that, we're never looking for the silver bullet, what makes it good for that summer. We're looking for long-term, what would help the lake. They came back and they talked about manage without the use of chemicals, work to return native plants to the lake. A lot of lily pads always were killed when they put the chemicals in. Aggressive removal of the floating plant fragments. You harvest, you got to remove the floaters. Educate residents about how to maintain their pier area and the 9-point pollution issues. That's the whole phosphorus when they used to put it on lawn fertilizers, and everybody's putting on the lake. Everybody wants this big lush green yard straight to the lake, straight to the stone and right in the water. So trying to educate people about that, and then really start looking at purchasing more wetlands to protect the watershed. Here's a plant community. You can see the hatched line is Eurasian water milfoil. You can see how abundant that still really kind of was in that 92 and even 2000, but the biodiversity was getting better. There were more diverse plant species in there. The trick was, how do we continue to knock that milfoil back? I think about the time I started tweaking slides here, talking about trying to get everybody to understand the history, because a new person would get on the lake and they'd say, why aren't you doing this? So-and-so is doing this. And every lake is different. How you do one lake is not the same that you don't take care of Pewaukee like you take care of, one of the speakers talked about Lake LaBelle or Pine Lake. They're completely different bodies, different plant species, and how you take care of it is different on each lake. So trying to explain to people that not every acre of open water will be available for the boating and water skiing and sailing. I even had a good buddy who had, when those, I call them wet bikes came out, the jet skis, when there's that much milfoil and floating plants to run a boat like that, or a unit that's operating off of suction, is just not the way to go in Pewaukee in those years. And then the complexities of a lake ecosystem. I've got people that call the district and say, just pave the damn bottom of the lake and be done with it. They just don't get how the plants provide the oxygen for the fisheries and the habitats for them to survive and hunt for other species. So trying to explain that to everybody. And then one thing I always say, we can't do this stuff all ourselves. We need partners and teammates. And I really think you guys are all headed that way. Everybody listening right now is in the same program. Let's get more people involved, retired people, anybody that's willing to help. It's just trying to coordinate it. So my increased management thought was increase the budget, go to the city, tell them, look, they're $1 million homes, or now they're $5 million homes on the lake. People want more stuff. People want to use the lake more. We need more harvesting equipment, more transporters, another truck. And the district was a little hesitant. I said, I will go to the meetings. I will talk to the city of Pewaukee. I'll talk to the town of Delafield and explain it and make it happen. So we really kicked that up a little bit with the budget. And then I noticed harvesting earlier in spring and later in fall helped you. When you hit them, the milfoil in late fall, seems like you stunt their growth for the spring, and then getting them early in spring helped too. And then you didn't get as many during that peak in July and whatnot. I also say you can't manage the lake inside without managing the whole watershed and all the streams coming into the lake. And we need to protect those wetlands. And I truly believe the best way to protect them is government ownership or some kind of easements that you can control what goes on there. Also, fish sticks is a big thing up north. The trees fall in the water, and I got a slide later I could show on that. In Pewaukee, as soon as the tree's down, they're calling me, what can we do to remove it? And of course, when the lake's all developed, how are you going to keep trees in the water? Well, we do have some spots that you can strategically do it. And then cribs, I'll talk about that later. Some people call fish cribs fish kill structures, but there's reasons to put them in on certain lakes. And if you get enough of them in there, it's not like 1 or 2 or 3 cribs are a fish kill structure. They're scattered all over. Watershed signage and storm drain stenciling, I really tried to push towards people that wanted to volunteer. I had Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. I was trying to get to work on watershed signage and go to the governments and get the authority and rights to put them in where need be. It's just hard to do so much yourself. You need help to do it. I'll talk about invasive species. Everybody deals with it. And then again, focusing on the watershed in the lake, the watershed, not just in the lake. And I had a little bit of talking to do to explain that to some of our commissioners. They were wise to wetlands. They got a good start before I got here. So I'm trying to kick it into gear. I'm all fired up and said, okay, my goal is to get this Duluth property, which is actually behind our office and abutting Meadowbrook Creek, 32 acres of really untouched property that had native species growing in there. There's buckthorn, but there was some good plants. Sewer Pack did a wonderful study, identified the plants back there. There was even the white lady slipper back there and some other really neat stuff. So I applied for a grant, got 215 grand to get 2 brand new harvesters. We now have 4 harvesters, the bigger ones. Lake management planning grant for 10,000. And then the Duluth property we acquired, I am in real estate, licensed real estate broker, and managed to squeak this by before some local guy was going to get it and develop it as much as he could. And fortunately, we got that 32 acres, and it's right on the creek that goes in. There was another one I was identifying on the other side of the lake that I call Ogden property. I identified it was 56 acres. Of that, 50 acres were wetlands. And we were able to turn that into an aquatic plant management site where we take our plants over there, and that's where we dispose of them. We turn the piles of the plants, let them break down, turn into topsoil, and then we give the topsoil away. And then we got 2 transporters. Transporters are hooking up to the harvesters and running across the lake to dump the plants off on a conveyor that dumps them into a truck. And then we got a river protection grant that we're still working on. I see it's 2019, and we're still working on that stream, and a couple of healthy lake grants. So that was the goal: get as much as I could for grants, get the help that we could to kick it in gear. This slide I put in here because those purple properties are now properties the district owns. This is Cocoa Creek. This is Cocoa Creek that comes up here, and then it goes into Coldwater Creek. It's actually a Class A trout stream. This was a 56 acres I was talking about in the previous slide. We own all this that comes into Taylor's Bay. My goal is the pink stuff here to try to acquire that, and even up here. The goal is the pink down here, and then the pink over here, which is Zion Creek. This is Meadowbrook Creek, which we're doing the stream bank projects on right now. And then on these streams, I don't have a slide in here, but we've been doing water quality testing all over these streams to find out where are the biggest pollutant loadings coming into the lake. And we found a couple of hot spots, and then the goal is to try to correct that. A big dream project of mine is, can you see this cursor on here, Brad? You guys can see that? This stream this stream used to cross the highway and go through a bunch of wetlands and then come back across the highway. They put Highway 16 in, put in a bunch of lanes, and now the stream, Class A trout stream, runs right along the highway where the plows blow all the salt right into the lake and into the stream and into the lake. So long-term goal is to reroute that, and that's could be a whole nother topic, but it's on my game plan. This was just 2018, 3 harvesters. There was a milfoil mat that was trying to develop. I said, let's get out there and let's cut the whole dang thing down, knock it down, stunt the growth, let the natives come up, and it was successful. This is the graph. Basically, when I took over and tried to kick it into gear, my cursor's over here, kind of in, hard to read the dates, 2011, 2012, milfoil was really bad. That's when we removed getting close to 10,000 cubic yards of aquatic plants, mostly milfoil out of the lake. Curly leaf is the second one that comes in there. We started more pile pickup, where we're picking up piles. If homeowners put their piles on the shore, we come around and we pick those piles up. And then we got 3, they were old harvesters that we converted into actual just shore barges that 3 people go out and they just clean up the shoreline. That's what they do all week long, constantly pick up any floaters. And most of those nowadays are coming from the prop shop of all these rental boats. You talk about the wakeboard boats, all of a sudden this lakeside, rental in Pewaukee Village, probably 20 pontoon boats a day out there chopping up plants. And that's a whole nother topic for another day too, but so we're cleaning that up. So in other words, we're really trying to kick that into gear, and it's making a difference. Water quality, I got to give the zebra mussels a little bit of credit on that, helping clean up the water quality, but it's also, you start knocking down the plant growth, you don't want to eliminate it, because then you're going to have an algae bloom and pea green soup. There's a really good balance between a lot of, we don't want the invasive aquatic species, but the natives, and a mix, a good biodiversity, and cutting it, and then the quality. So I talked about when I was a kid, I'd be a foot off the bottom trying to see the bottom. Here's the big lake, 19 feet down on a Seiki disc. It's crazy. 16, 15, So it's, the water quality has really gotten a lot better. That same pier that I was on, I moved less than, say 15 houses down. I can stand on the end of the pier and see the bottom of the lake. And still today, I do think, I agree with the wakeboard stuff, that's having an effect on this water quality. It seems like as soon as you're okay, it's going to get clean. You see so much action out there and so many boats that it's never going to be, pristine and clear 19 feet down like that. So the watershed sign I made was this. I had someone make it. It's on a board. My goal was like 10 strategic locations, but it's still out there trying to get Boy Scouts or volunteer people to go to the meetings and argue with the city or the town on the location and where you put it. Everyone, there's all kinds of rules for signage and they don't want too many signs. And so it's another little battle, but another thing on the priority list. So you can see it's a pretty decent watershed that comes into the lake, a lot of groundwater, and then really 4 contributory streams. So I get into the future, what's happening, it can be depressing talking about aquatic plants, but we're really getting that under control. And I'm like, okay, what can we do? We got to get more people involved. And we do have a lot of government people involved. The DNR has been great with the grants. I can't say enough. Heidi Bunk's very good in sewer pack and helping us with the plans and management and grants and everything. So shout out to those for helping us. Town of Delafield has pretty strict density requirements on development, which has helped the lake and helped their sewer system. And they help with the harvesting and the funding for the wetlands. City of Pewaukee, same thing. I'm hoping to get them into some of this stream restoration. That we're really a sanitary district, yet we're doing all this stuff in the lake. It's kind of we need those partners to jump on board and say, you're right, we got to stop the salt going in the lake. We need to create more stream bank buffers and stabilize the streams and whatnot. Village, trying to get the village involved more. That's challenging. I don't think they like doing anything with the lake, but I'm working on that. And then the Women's Club has been good. Pewaukee River Partnership, that's Charlie Shong, my predecessor, and he's been doing great with that. I'm actually part of that group and on the board with that. Women's Club has been very helpful financially. Kiwanis has been helped with, some of the kids and keeping our trailer stocked with boots and cutters and stuff that we cut invasive species with. And then Pewaukee Water Ski Club has been very helpful with those donations too. Mostly those coming from the Clean Water Festival, but they helped with some boardwalks and some watershed stuff, and even in Pewaukee River stuff. And then Pewaukee's chapter of walleye tomorrow. I was just trying to get the walleyes back in the lake because they were going away, and that turned into one more huge project. And I'll hit that later. So those properties I showed you that were purple, we own, probably 300 acres of wetlands. We try to do prairie burns. We plant native plants. If we can't get to the prairie burns, that's a big timing issue, trying to get it while it's dry. And we got to worry about the houses in the background. Don't start any fires and burn any houses down. But we try to do the prairie burns to get the native plants to prosper and keep the buckthorn away. Speaking of native or non-native and invasive, now this Phragmites is starting to show up, and that's a big pain in the rear to try to remove. So we got a couple of sites that we do it. That's Amy Brandenstein in the 8th grade, or 6th, 7th, and 8th grade river keepers. And when there's nothing to do on the river, it was too cold or windy or whatever, I said, I got another project for us. And there we are out there cutting Phragmites down. This is the trailer that I bought from someone that sold it very reasonable, knowing what we were going to do with it. In there are snips, shovels, rakes, hip boots, wheelbarrows, ropes, chains, all stuff for cutting buckthorn and removing Phragmites and playing in the river, which I have a slide or two later. This is a Walleyes for Tomorrow group helping remove buckthorn down on Meadowbrook Creek. This is a slide after they went through. This is what it looked like. came back right away, seeded it with some annual rye to get it growing right away. And that's where we actually are doing a stream bank project. You can see this, the erosion lines in there that have been happening. Once you get that buckthorn growing, it provides that shade, and then it's exposed soil, and the river gets wider and wider, carves out that sediment, and it gets wider and wider, and then it's shallower and shallower and full of sediment, and it's warmer, so then it's conducive to carp and bullhead instead of, you know, walleyes and northern pike going up there spawning and bluegills and whatnot. So our goal is to narrow that down, get the water going faster, stay colder. Riverboat trips, I think a lot of people have heard about this. So the outfall of Pewaukee Lake, I don't have the picture, it's on the left over here. I get the 6th grade class to come down there, and it's all there's basically 5 days of classes, that a morning and an afternoon. The morning they come down and I make them work, and I teach them old school work ethics that seem to be going away, but I make them do it. And we've hauled debris out. Fallen trees are good, but if it's in a path and in an area where people are going to the stores and walking, we want it out of there. And so with teamwork, kids can carry these big things out. We mulch this trail. We talk about erosion along the banks, and we talk about picking up garbage. I stand at the top of the tunnels and I start with a little speech saying, anybody know what a watershed is? And you get some answering it. And then you explain that it's a rainfall coming down and water goes into the lake. And I said, then where does it go? And, you know, one or two might catch that it's coming out underneath us in the culverts there. And then I asked, where does it go? Pewaukee River goes to the Illinois Fox River and the Illinois River, Mississippi River, to Gulf of Mexico. So when you're here with your buddies later, don't throw your water bottle in there and let it float down, because that can end up in the ocean. And we got a big plastic problem in the ocean. Could go on and on about these trips, so much information, but down below it is, once they're done doing all the work, we reward them in the afternoon. They get to go down the boat trip, and I ask them to pick up garbage, tell me what you see, turtles, frogs, what did you catch, type thing. And these 6th graders go down there. 99% of them have never been in a boat before or even rowed a row. So I typically got to be in chest waders to save people and get them straight going back down. But they have a ball, and they never forget this. They never forget it. On the right side is at the 7th and 8th grade science classes, doing species in the river and some water quality testing. So we do that. They do a little flow monitoring too and whatnot, but we bring that trailer down, all the stuff's there for them. They do their thing and I pick it up. That one pretty much is I hand them the tools and the teachers take care of it. There's always casualties here. This is my nephew, lost his boot in the river. So that's downstream of the river. They were putting brush bundles in here, and the DNR actually allowed them to excavate. I thought it was like a half a cubic yard or a cubic yard of material if you did it by hand with a shovel. So trying to establish the bank back here and plant some native species in there. Another project is for the Pewaukee River Partnership was a canoe launch. This is recycled material that someone was tearing a house down in Pewaukee, and it was their deck and it was still in good shape. So Charlie Shong actually went and got all the material and we built this. It's my son and his buddy. They always get roped into these projects. This was the parking lot that was like a junkyard. I mean, there's stuff buried around in here and berms around it with buckthorn. So we cleared all that out. See all the water drains to the center. I scooped that out with the skid steer in the background here. And then the classes, when I ran out of restoration upriver, I had them come down here and we put in some recycled weeds for topsoil down there, put in a bunch of native sedges and plants in there, mulched it. I came back and took some of the walleyes for tomorrow cruise logs that we are getting donated. These are ash logs, you know, with the ash borer, everybody's getting rid of ash logs. Put that little fence decoration thing up there. It's growing wonderfully right now. And it also stops the people from coming in with 4-wheel drives and doing donuts and shredding the whole thing up, and all your work went to hell. So this is a covered bridge that you might see down in Pewaukee there. This was the structural components. I helped do really all the permitting and behind the scenes stuff. Charlie Shong was absolutely instrumental, and this is his whole gig. It would never have happened if he didn't drive this project. He was the most nagging person I think I've ever met for trying to get permits and actually make this happen. I was all for the project, had MSOE students designing stuff. Charlie and I don't always agree on stuff. Here I came back with my family and added additional posts between every section while he was out of town. He was so pissed at me, but I said, you know what, Charlie, it's just not people walking up this ramp. There's going to be wedding photos on this thing and all that weight in one little span. Trust me, you got to, yeah, there's the only picture of Tom working on it. Everybody else, you know, I'm taking pictures. There's my only picture, probably not the right one to put up here, but was helping put the trusses up on top. Behind us down there, you see mulch and stuff. These are native plantings that we're planting down at the park down there. Let's see. Oop, I'm just gonna make sure that didn't skip too many. Okay, that was right, yeah. Back to the buckthorn removal. This is streambank stabilization. So Meadowbrook Creek, I talked about that earlier. Here was that picture where we moved it. And now here's the bank being restored. You can see the grasses grew up and some native sedges we put in are growing there. So we put these coir logs in there. It's those, you know, coconut logs that are roped together. And then we put native sedges in here. Wisconsin Lutheran College did a study in this area, and the sedges are all conducive for northern spawning habitat. And this is the area that I said that the river's so, you know, it's so wide that it's so shallow. And what we want, you know, we got good lily pads and stuff there, but we got to reestablish the banks on both sides, get the river flowing faster and deeper, flush the sediment out, and get a healthier stream that the fish can come up and spawn. This is the actual opposite side of the stream. We're actually going to be there this weekend, Saturday, Earth Day. I got 10 people coming from Rooker Milky, the engineering firm, all volunteers, and probably 10 to 15 walleyes for tomorrow. Guys come and volunteer on it. So here's that same length now, a lot more has been done. We're staking it down with oak stakes that are donated by Bohm Madison over in Pewaukee there. The Christmas trees I collect them every Christmas. We go around and pick up the trees in the area and you pack those in behind here. We drill a hole through the stump and use duckbill anchors and drive them down so they don't float up and float away. And then the goal is the water comes down here, it overtops, but all our sedges are in here. All the sediment drops into the stream here. And then these sedges and these sedges grow together and you got an established stream bank there. So really good progress on that. I'm really happy with the way it's going. Here's just another picture of that. Here's a pretty good picture of, you can see the coir log with the native plant sedges here. See the lily pads growing. Here's where the flow is basically mostly going through, and all these sedges, that coir log is actually underwater, but those plants are designed to be underwater, so everything's healthy. We did do some Healthy Lakes grants. We did 5 of them. Unfortunately, I tried getting back to the DNR and trying to lift that issue that they have with, you can't have more than, you have to have so much square footage to have your rain garden or plant site. And I get that. That makes sense for water quality and runoff. I know that. But I had people that have 50 foot in front and they got their pier and they got their little area and they wanted to do something on each side of the yard where the drainage actually goes, but they only wanted to be so big. Well, we couldn't get the grant and couldn't do it because the areas were too small. So I get you need those areas that big, but I also get that now you're taking somebody out that's not doing it. And even if it would have worked half good, it's better than nothing. This actually was someone that wasn't part of a Healthy Lakes, but I had to stop and look at it and talk to her and said, what you're doing is phenomenal. It looks absolutely beautiful. Now there's plants that aren't native species and there's flowers and there's marigolds, but that's okay. You can have that stuff in there. Just get the native stuff mixed in there with the deep roots to get that beautiful, pristine lawn, getting the nutrients out at the shoreline. So you got to teach people that you can do this and make it look good. Here's one I did at my mom's cottage. Of course, I force her into this stuff, but here's our cottage. She's on the opposite lake side of the lake as me. And this is a side yard that drains down and it all comes here and it's pretty wet there. So here's, I always plant marigolds at the corners. You see them on the corners because they say they keep rabbits away. And there's some truth to that, but then I've seen some brave rabbits too. So it's not 100% foolproof. But here's what it looks like. I mean, it's beautiful. Purple coneflower, cardinal flower. There's milkweed behind here, hard to see. I mean, it actually looks gorgeous and it's right there on the lake. So Charlie, my predecessor, was very good about this, but he'll plant anything and people think it looks like weeds and you just got to make it look good. Fish sticks is the next one I'll quick try to hit on. I think everybody knows what it is. Other people do it. And when I'm talking about this stuff, I know everybody else does it. And this is just to keep you pumped up and keep everybody doing it and get more people to do it. So this is a lake up north. It naturally happens. It falls in, it stays there. It's absolutely wonderful for the ecology of the lake. But on Pewaukee, as soon as the tree falls, like I said, everybody's taking it down. So how do you do one? The other thing is doing a fish stick on a lake where it's so developed and where you have heavy plant growth and floating aquatic plants. You better do it in a spot where the aquatic plants aren't getting caught up and making a mess. Because I've had someone volunteer when I looked at where they were doing it. I'm like, I really, really, really appreciate it. And I would do it, but your neighbor's going to get all the weeds and I'm never going to hear the end of it. And then heavy winds are going to knock it aside and we're going to have a maintenance issue. So the goal on this, get as much help as you can. You can see you got the dogs out there, but I do got a bunch of people there. And then the kids are always a bunch of help. Get off the tree. We need to winch it to the shoreline, but they're seeing what you're doing. They're understanding it and they get it for the next generation. So we identified some spots. Walks Island was ideal. I could do it. Predominant west winds, get off the back corner, cut down some trees. There's actually an oak that someone was cutting down. They say, take it or leave it. We're cutting it down. I said, I'll take it. Get a couple big trucks dragging it across the lake. Then you got to get it up to the shoreline. So you got to run a winch to the log, to a pulley up on the shoreline, and then back to the truck and suck that thing into shore. And then we cable it to the shoreline. And then you got to put rocks on it. A couple ways to do it. You can do saddles, which are burlap bags with ropes over it, and you hold the log down. I'm not a fan of that because I'm nervous if these bags rot and the wind pushes the tree. Our preferred method was drilling holes in every single rock and making a rock necklace like this. So there's all cabled and then drilled and cabled through the trees. Those aren't going anywhere. Not hard to do. There's a video. I don't know if this will work. It looks like it's working. So this is my son 4 years ago, but here's a little kid. And then look at this kid. So if you think it's too hard to drill holes through rocks, that kid's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. He's got a hammer drill and he's drilling holes in rocks. So, you can do it. It seems hard and time consuming, but you get everybody together, working together, it goes quick. This was just something Sewer Pack had put together for a presentation. It kind of shows the whole fish stick thing. They said it was the first one in Southeast Wisconsin. I don't know how true that is. Don't care. All we want to do is get it out there. Same thing with all this stuff. I don't care who's doing what. The more people that do it, the better off we are. Here was that location off of Waukes Island, that little yellow dot there. So strategic locations to do it. Here's a final project before winter was going out, all set. Here's the rocks piled all over it, all cabled together, cabled to shore. I came back with my AquaView fish camera and took pictures underneath it. I was bummed that I didn't see any fish. It was a nice calm day and it looked beautiful, but I think sometimes when it's really new, I'm not so sure they're quick to get there, but I got to get back there and get some more photos. I'm going to jump into fish cribs. So I'm going to talk about walleyes and the hatchery. And I know I don't got a lot of time, so I'm going to rush through this. Why fish cribs? Well, Pewaukee's had a history of the walleye was depleting completely. It was a bell curve. There was big ones and nothing else left. So we started a hatchery, and I got pictures to show that. But once you get a hatchery going and release these tiny little fry in the lake, where are they going? If you know Pewaukee Lake, the big lake there's no structure. It's a big fishbowl. And when you let these little fry go, they're like mosquitoes. You're letting them go in the top 18 inches of the deepest water. That's where all the zooplankton is. You look for those bubbly areas when the wind's blowing. You release them right into that. They grow mouths, they feed, and they go down. And what do they got to go down to? The perch population. So you got to get something down in the lake that they can go hide in. And that's where this came into play, the fish cribs. Then you got the muskie fishermen. I'm a big muskie fisherman. Where are you going to put these fish cribs that aren't going to cause problem with people? You don't want to put them shallow so people dive into them and break their necks. You don't want motors to hit them. And then you got the fishermen that are trolling, and they got $18 muskie bait. So I drew up this, and I explained to Ben, who's the DNR fisheries. I said, hey, I get it. You troll the weed line on the shoreline, and then there's a big flat, and then you troll the top of the flat, and you troll the bottom of the 18 to 30 feet of water. That's where you musky fish and troll. You put the cribs right in the center of that, and then you create a map that everybody knows where they are to avoid them. Here's a map of the locations, strategic locations to put them. Here's Eagle Scouts. I put them to work to build a crib. They built 3 of them. We put them in. Here's recycled Christmas trees again. You stuff the cribs full of Christmas trees. You put some more logs on top to hold those Christmas trees in. We drill holes in the trunks, and then use a big nail spike, 10-inch spike, to pound them into the logs so they don't ever float up out of there. The walleyes for tomorrow in a few minutes. You stick the nets out there, top left corner. You net the big walleyes, top right corner. You bring them back in these tubs. You separate the males and the females. You take the females, and you just gently rub their belly with your fingers. You're just caressing them. The eggs just pour out. You take the males, and you gently do the same thing. Males are always excited and ready to go. And you put the milt in there, and then you mix it up. And here I got the whole family mixing walleye eggs, daughter, nephew. And then they come into the hatchery. You mix them up. You use a bentonite clay mix to coat the outer shell to protect it. You put them in jars. These jars are water pumped out of the lake into a big tub, which goes by gravity through all these. And you're basically trying to get a gentle flow of rolling eggs, like they were on the shoreline, rolling on the shoreline. When they hatch, here they are up here. That's what it actually looks like, a tiny little guy right there. They come out of the hatchery, and now they go into these tubs. You put them in, siphon them into coolers. You take those coolers out onto the lake, and you siphon them into the lake in that top 18 inches of water. So I kind of ending towards, I think one more slide, but is it all working? Well, look at all the smiling faces on all these kids, and those are walleyes, and there was nothing in the bottom half. And right now we actually aren't running the walleye wagon this year because we had, I thought it was 30 fish per acre when Ben did a fish study. And I said, okay, let's not run a hatchery just so we have fish cannibalizing each other. Let's see if we got some natural reproduction from what we did. And let's focus on Meadowbrook Creek, do another 200 or 300 feet of Meadowbrook Creek, get some sedges in there, get the flow going, and hopefully these fish will go up there and spawn. So hopefully we're helping them reproduce, and they'll actually natural reproduce in the rivers. Last picture is just that trailer again, because it takes all these people right here, the Kiwanis, Pewaukee River Partnership, Pewaukee School District, teaching these kids, the Women's Club, Pewaukee Water Ski Club, everybody working together to do this, because there's just so much to do on one lake and watershed. It's just incredible. And I kind of preached that to the Clean Water Association. So that's me babbling a mile a minute. And I know I went fast, but I could probably spend a half hour on just the walleye wagon or something, you know, but I don't know if questions or.
It's amazing. It's amazing work. I don't know if you had the chat up at all, but there's a lot of just, and I echo the accolades. It's like outstanding job. What a lesson for citizenship. And I mean, that's why it's so exciting to have you on the board for Lake Country Clean Waters. It's so excited to work with you, see what you're doing. And just be totally inspired by what's going on and everything you guys are doing in Pewaukee. My favorite quote is that it's not, I wrote it down. You can't treat the lake without managing what's around the lake. I think that's so important and such a good lesson. And I mean, applying all of that to everything you're doing on the lake is just amazing. There was one question, if we can get to it quick. Have you looked at grass carp at all? Eating. So this is all the way back to when you were talking about milfoil at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The carp has actually started to go down, and I think I can attribute a lot to the bow fishermen. And there's a lot of people on the lake that hate it and call the cops and whatnot, but they take a lot of carp out. And we did, even through the walleyes group, had a carp fishery, and I had one of the guys run it, and he did it once and didn't want to do it again because it's a lot of work, you know? And I'm like, it's one more thing I'm not doing. I'd love to do it, but it's been problematic. But when I showed that map of the lake and I said, Zion Creek coming in, that I know that's a carp factor, or one of the problem area for carp spawning. And there's some good things happening over there that I helped initiate, and I just stepped back and it's happening. And that's for the future. I don't think it's public yet, what's going on over there, but that should take care and eliminate that whole carp situation over there.
Gotcha.
And that carp was part of the problem with, our natural spawning habitat. I mean, literally when I'm running the walleye wagon and we pull the dead eggs and we throw it off the pier, all of a sudden you'll see a carp come by and just vacuum the eggs up. And I'm like, okay, if a walleye actually spawned and actually got the eggs in the right spot, the carp are coming by and vacuuming up the eggs. If they actually hatch, we have such a high panfish population, which I didn't hit on, because not every lake is so different that we're increasing this walleye population, but it's a predator fish that eats perch, eats panfish. And then by being really aggressive with the harvesting, that milfoil is where these panfish hide in. And at first I was nervous when I ran a harvester late in October and by one of the streams, and I had these tiny bluegill coming up, and I called Ben. I'm like, I can't believe how small they are. He said, the lake is so fertile and there's so many aquatic plants that the bluegills will hatch 3 times a year. Wow. And I'm like, how do you handle a population like that? So when people question, yeah, you're putting all those fish in, we need the fish. We need the muskie, the pike, the walleye, and the bass to take care of the panfish. And honestly, the panfish, Ben said, are 5/8 of an inch on average bigger than they were 3 years ago. So that's huge. That makes a big difference. So the pumpkin seeds are getting bigger. The bluegills are getting bigger. The fish are healthy, and the lake's got a really high biodiversity of plants. And I know Sewer Pack's here and can attest to that. It's really, really looking good. I think we're at like 15% milfoil on the whole lake. When you go back years back and think of that, it's incredible.
That's awesome. Well, man, great work on everything you're doing. I mean, Jill said it really well. You connect the dots with a bunch of different things. I mean, the way it works is everything is connected, and it's like you're doing enough, and not to mention you're doing it all, but you're also educating the youth on the lake, and you're educating people to grow up and keep caring about this, stick with that work ethic that seems to be going away, and know that to have something that is productive and useful and beautiful and good, you do put in some work, and you do that, and you show that very well. You speak to it really well, and it's just really great to hear this story, man. I could listen to you for another hour, talk about all the projects you're doing.
It's great stuff, and you get excited about it because we got so many good people. I mean, that walleye thing, I just wanted 10 people to run this thing. We got 260 members, and I'm not trying to get members at all. They just come because they see what's happening, and that's the key. They see the good stuff and they want to be part of it.
Tom, I have a question before people start to kind of filter off here. If they're curious to do any of the projects that you were kind of just talking about, is there an easy way to contact you to kind of get a little bit more information? Or should they can always email info@lakecountrycleanwaters.org. and I can connect with you. Otherwise, if you have an email that you want to put out there,
Yeah,
you're more
I
than
wondered
welcome
if
to.
I didn't even have it on there. Yeah. Yeah, email is T as in Tom, Kepp, Koepp at lakepewaukee.org. Kepp at lakepewaukee.org.
I just put it in the chat as well, so you can take it from
Yeah,
there.
anytime, anything anybody wants to know about, or, failures, I'm good at screwing stuff up, but that's how you get good at stuff.
Totally, that's how you learn. Cool. Well, I really appreciate Tim and Tom, you guys taking the time out of your day, and everybody for attending. This was an awesome session. It's recorded, and I'll actually stop recording now. But it'll be on our website.